What's happening, good people? Welcome to the channel. I'm Wes, aka Mr. Budget Watch, and today we are going to be taking a look at this. So this is the Aerotec Forte Ti. So this was kindly loaned into the channel by Aerotec, but it does have to make its way back to them once this review has been done. So this watch is available on Kickstarter, and currently, you know, it's doing pretty well. But there is still some time left if you want to get a good deal. So that will be linked in the description. But should you actually, you know, consider one of these? That's what we're going to find out today. So diameter wise, we are looking at 39.7, so sub 40, always cool. That goes up to 44.5, including the crown. 20mm lug width. The crown is 5.6mm in diameter. 12.1mm thick excluding the strap, 14.9 including the strap, so it does wear a little bit big because obviously it does pass under the watch twice. 72 gram on the supplied Zulunator, domed sapphire crystal, a titanium case with DLC coating. There is also a bead blasted option available if you're not sold on the DLC. We have a fully loomed dial, which is BGW9, but more on that later on. 200 meters of water resistance and a 1-year warranty. So let's, you know, dive in. And we're going to take a look at this bezel first. So you can see it is DLC and we have markings all the way around. Now I have noticed something a little bit peculiar about these. It looks like these markings could potentially be stickers. I may be wrong, but if you actually look on these macro shots, you can actually see there's sort of like a little border around them. And it just looks a little bit like a sticker. But I do really like the contrast against this sort of creamy white against the DLC. I think it's a really nice contrast. Definitely has a little bit of vintage vibes going on. But the bezel though, this is one of my first little issues about this watch. The bezel action, you know, is quite nice. Really nice clicks, sounds pretty good. The only problem is though, you can see my fingers struggling now, is to get grip. It's very, very slippery. So yeah, that is probably my biggest complaint about this bezel. It lines up perfectly. I've not really knocked it into line though. I mean, yeah, it looks kind of cool, but it's just not very functional. So there is that. So moving on to the dial, you can see we have a black printed minute track, really nice against that sort of creamy white dial. Inwards again, you can see we have all applied indices all the way around. At the 12 o'clock, we have a number 12. Everywhere else we have circles apart from at the 6 o'clock where we have a little rectangle with that date window above. Now I do like the date window at the 6 o'clock. You guys know I prefer mine at the 6 o'clock or none at all, but it's nice to have it at the 6 o'clock instead of at the 3 o'clock. So as for branding, it's actually quite minimalistic. All that we have is an applied Aerotec logo underneath the 12 o'clock, and I quite like it. I think it looked a little bit still as Star Trek, I said in the unboxing. Someone said it looked a little bit like the Citroen car brand logo, and it kind of does as well. But yeah, it's really cool, and I like that there's not a clutter of text all over the dial, apart from right at the bottom where it says 20 ATM, 660 feet, and that is it. So you guys might not like that, but I quite like that there's not a load of text cluttering that dial. So speaking of the dial, I love the contrast between this sort of faux patina and the sort of paler cream, which is fully loomed, by the way. But yeah, I really like it. It's definitely got some sort of vintage aesthetic to it with the colour palette, but it is also very modern in its styling as well. It's really cool. It's a nice sort of fusion going on. So let's take a look at that handset next. You can see we have a very, very nice shaped handset, all loom filled, and I just think they're quite cool. You know, something you don't really see all that often. And then for that second hand, we have a nice little splash of colour with it having a red contrast against everything else, and then a little lollipop. And the hands are quite a nice length too. You know, they're all pretty much reach where they're supposed to, so good job on that. So taking a look at the side profile, you can see we have a nice downturn to those lugs, all DLC finished, and that is pretty much it. Nothing too much to note there. Spinning around to this side, you can see we have a signed crown, And it is, yeah, it's quite nicely done. I think I quite like the logo on it. It's not too in your face or anything. And the DLC, you know, just blends quite nicely. You can also see that crystal as well. Doesn't really protrude much over the bezel, but here you can see it is heavily domed because you do get that nice dial play and distortion. So let's pop this strap off and take a look at the case back, because this case back is really kind of cool. So you can see we've got a little diver's helmet with a little window in it, and you can actually see part of that myota movement inside. I just think it's so well done. You know, instead of having a full exhibition case back, they've just put a little window, and I just think it really ties in as well. You can see we've got their branding, their logo, and of course their branding, specifications as well, and it's all really well thought out and well done. You know, it all fits right in the center, so it's not like cluttering all the way around, and it's just focused in one spot. Very, very well done and well executed as well. Props for you know, doing something individual. So now we're going to talk about that movement, and this is packing a Myota 9015. So we all know the Myota by now. 28,800, which is high beat, 24 joule, hacking, hand winding and auto winding as well. A 42-hour reserve, and it is -10 to +30 seconds per day. And you can just see how nice that second hand sweeps away. One of my favourite things about this movement is that particular feature. But how does it work? Well, it's actually very straightforward and simple, just like the NH35 and the Myota 8000 series. So you just unscrew the crown, you can see that pops out. Another little area of concern for me is this crown. Again, like the bezel, not much grip going on, so you do have to purchase it quite tight to get a grip. So you can see popping it out all the way, we can adjust the time, and it's not the nicest feeling crowning stem I've ever used. It feels a little bit sort of hollow, but the action, you know, is all right. It adjusts smoothly, but yeah, it just feels a little bit not great, to be perfectly honest. You can see that's pop back in, and then one pull out, and you can do your date, quick set date and all that good stuff. But we're not really going to waffle on about that too much longer. Everything's working as it should. But yeah, the crown, I'm not really sold on. It looks nice, I like the styling of it, but it's just not very functional, again, like that bezel. So let's talk strap next, and this is a final thing about this watch that I'm not really sold on. The material is a little bit rough feeling, and I've noticed some of the heat treatment as well is not the best done. I mean, it matches really nicely. We've got the black, the black, the black, all works absolutely perfectly in terms of aesthetic. You can see we've got those large Zulu style keepers. Now I do know that these are supposed to be quite tactical and quite durable, but I would like to have seen maybe a softer alternative as well. So if you do like this really tough and rugged style of strap, fine. But then maybe a softer seatbelt style would have been a nice inclusion as well. Even with a slight price bump, I wouldn't have minded, because obviously I would have preferred a softer strap to this one. Just a personal preference. You can see we've got two fixed big Zulu style keepers, and then we've got that again, you know, style of buckle. Really nice and solid and planted, all really well put together, apart from, like I said, just that little bit of issue with the heat treatment. But yeah, really solid and well put together strap. It's just not my preferred style, but yeah, that's just a personal preference. Let's pop this on wrist and show you what it wears like. Right guys, so here it is on wrist, and do you know what? This is another little issue I'm having with the watch, the comfort. Now I don't think it's the watch per se, I think it's the strap. I just don't get on with this style of strap, which is why I don't really have any in my collection. I do like a good NATO, don't get me wrong, but these ones, they just don't do anything for me. Like I said, the fabric is a little bit coarse, it just sort of irritates my skin a little bit. But again, you know, we're all different. You guys might really love these straps. I personally, I'm just not a fan. They just don't sort of suit me all that well. I mean, yeah, it looks great with a watch. I can't like get around that. Can't knock it for that. But comfort wise, it just doesn't do anything for me. And of course, with it being, you know, a double pass underneath, it does ride quite high as well. Luckily, the watch is titanium, so it's not heavy or sort of bulky feeling. in that regards. It's not like really top heavy and lumbersome on your wrist. It's just the strap. It really does let the comfort down for me. But again, you know, we're all different. You guys might, you know, like how this wears and how this feels on wrist. But again, you know, it's just not for me. One positive note though, we do have plenty of adjustment. You can see I've got 2 left with my 6-inch wrist, so it will fit technically smaller wrists. And then if I just move that excess strap out of the way, you can see we've got plenty for you guys with thicker wrists as well. So it's definitely versatile in that regard. But you know, again, I'm just not going to say it. So let's move on and talk actually Loom. So you guys know by now that I don't really talk about Loom all that often in my videos anymore, apart from in the end summary. And there is a reason for that. I mean, I put a poll up and said, what are you least interested in? And a lot of you said Loom. So that's why I've sort of just done Loom videos when I talk about the movement, just so you can actually see what it's like. But the reason why I wanted to talk about this one today is that it's actually my first fully loomed dial. And do you know what? I am impressed. Aerotec have done a bang up job with the loom on this. It is ridiculously good, a proper loom monster. I'm not even joking. You can see now just how insanely bright and vibrant it is, and it lasts for ages too. It is really well done, so props to them for making a fantastic loom. And I mean, it's so legible, so bright. And yeah, I know it sounds like I'm thinking, but yeah, it really is that good. I am so impressed with the loom. So that is about your lot. Let's talk verdict. So like I said, this is a Kickstarter project. Current price, I think there's still some available at this price. $219 for the bead blasted, and it is a little bit more for the DLC, and a little bit more if you want that fully loomed dial. Obviously, it's a little bit cheaper if you do want just the traditional loom. So obviously, there's a few different pricing structures depending on which model you go for. I think this one is actually the most expensive, the DLC and fully loom. But if you want to save a little bit, get the bead blasted and the other one, or you can sort of mix and match. It's really cool how they've done it. And I know it sounds like I'm making it a little bit more complicated than it is, but I tend to do that. So for pricing again, $219 for the cheapest. I think for this one it's around 230 something, which is UK, and I think that's really impressive for all the specifications and the Myota movement. Now retail price will be going up to around $450. And that is US, so I'll put conversion rates on screen so you can see. But I think that is still a really good value. But there is still some things that I'm not personally keen on. The bezel, you already know. The crown, the strap. Few things that personally, you know, I just don't get on with. But if I take my personal opinion off the table and just look at this from a raw value perspective, you know, at that price point with the Spec and the fully loomed dial and everything else, I still think it's a really good value watch. Might not be for me personally, but I still think the value proposition is there. Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any uploads. And of course, follow me on social media at Mr. Budget Watch. Thanks again. I'll see you soon.